prisoner was intentionally trapped inside a jail, and the warden kept increasing his sentence through planned schemes. How will this prisoner escape from the prison? Let's find out. The movie opens with a prisoner named Frank, who is locked inside a high-security, dangerous prison. He had been transferred there a few months earlier. The warden of this prison doesn't treat him well. One day, Frank got into a verbal argument with the warden, and as punishment, he was thrown into a gas chamber. The gas chamber is a special cabin where prisoners are locked in, and poisonous gas is released inside to make them suffocate and stop breathing. That's exactly what happened to Frank. As he began to struggle to breathe, one of the guards stepped forward to shut off the gas, but the warden ordered him to keep it on. Frank was nearly unconscious. The warden thought Frank wouldn't be able to survive the gas anymore, so he quickly ordered it to be turned off and had Frank pulled out. Frank was in terrible condition. He was taken back to his cell, where he sat alone, thinking about his past life, the life he had before prison. Frank used to be a car mechanic. He lived a very happy life. He had a girlfriend, and both of them shared many beautiful moments together. When Frank had free time at his garage, he would play with the neighborhood kids. Life was going really well for him. But one day, the man who taught Frank to play football, his mentor, was attacked by some people. When Frank found out, he decided to take revenge and taught those men a lesson. For this act, the court sentenced him to prison. Even inside prison, Frank was treated well. The other prisoners were friendly and easygoing. Because of his good behavior, Frank was allowed to go home once a week. He would go for just a day and spend some lovely time with his girlfriend. One day, Frank heard that his mentor, who was in the hospital, was about to die. He begged the warden to let him out for just 1 hour to meet him one last time, but the warden refused. Frank desperately wanted to meet his mentor, so he escaped from prison. He was able to spend his mentor's final moments with him. But after that, Frank surrendered himself back to the authorities. The prison he had escaped from had such tight security that no one had ever escaped before. So when Frank did, he became famous in the media, and people started calling him a hero. For escaping prison, his sentence was extended by 5 more years, but he served it peacefully, without any violence or trouble. As time passed, Frank had only 2 months left on his sentence, but everything was about to change. After Frank escaped, the warden's reputation was destroyed. He was publicly humiliated and demoted. He used to be counted among the top wardens in America, but not anymore. People started mocking him behind his back. He blamed Frank for all of it. So he arranged to have Frank transferred to his own prison because he wanted revenge. At this new prison, the captain explained the prison rules to Frank and warned that if he broke any rule, he would be punished. Frank was then locked in a cell. After a while, he was brought before the warden. The warden said, "Last time, when you escaped my prison, the media made you a hero, but I was disgraced. I got demoted. I used to be one of the top wardens in the country, and now people mock me behind my back. And it's all because of you." Frank replied, "It's not because of me, it's because of you. I begged you for just 1 hour to see my dying mentor, and you refused. That's why I had no choice but to escape. I even surrendered afterward, and still got 5 extra years. But you don't care. You only want revenge." But the warden didn't listen. He just wanted to get back at Frank. After this, Frank is locked inside a cell where gas is released. In fact, whenever a prisoner made a mistake or broke a rule, they would be locked inside this chamber, and gas would be released into it. Frank hadn't done anything wrong, yet he was still being punished. He was put inside the chamber and gas was released, making it extremely difficult for him to breathe. The person controlling the gas realizes that it's time to stop, but the warden refuses to allow it. Inside the gas chamber, Frank's condition gets worse, and just when he is about to die, the gas is finally turned off. Frank suffers greatly from this. In the prison, there's also an inmate named Chink, whom everyone fears because he's the warden's special guy. The warden had told Chink to teach Frank a lesson. So when Frank comes out of the chamber, Chink and his gang confront him. Chink is holding an ice pick, something that could easily kill someone. But just before Chink can attack Frank, a security officer shows up. He becomes aware that Chink is carrying an ice pick and is about to attack. However, since Chink is surrounded by his gang, he manages to hide the ice pick. The officer then asks Frank, did he have an ice pick? But Frank denies it because he doesn't want to escalate the situation. Later, while Frank is cleaning in the prison, another inmate named Dallas approaches him. He says, "I was also in the prison you escaped from before. I know how smart you are. You can escape from any prison. I want us to escape together." But Frank refuses clearly. He says, "My sentence will be over in just 2 months. Dallas says, "Come with me. You're a great mechanic. Instead of cleaning, I'll get you work in the prison garage." He takes Frank to the garage, but the head mechanic there says, "I don't have room for any useless people. I need experts." So Frank walks away from there. After that, Dallas shares his escape plan with Frank. He says, "I plan to escape through a pipe that leads upwards." Frank replies, replies, maybe you didn't observe the pipe properly. The temperature inside is so high, the moment you enter it, you'll die. Dallas gets scared after hearing this. The next day, while they're in the cafeteria for lunch, they see a new inmate has arrived. His name is Vianon. Vianon is a bit naive, so other inmates are bullying him. Frank helps him out and sits with him. Dallas is also sitting there. Vianon says, I don't want to join any group. While the three are talking, one inmate suddenly kills another with an ice pick. Vianon gets terrified seeing this. Frank says, if you don't join a group, the same thing could happen to you. So Vianon decides to join their group. The next day, Chink comes to Frank and says, why don't we have a rugby match? Frank agrees. A match is organized between them. Chink and his gang cheat throughout the game and use the match as an excuse to repeatedly attack Frank. But Frank is a skilled player. He already knew Chink would cheat, so he was prepared and gives a fitting response to every attack. The head mechanic, who had earlier refused to let Frank work in the garage, is also watching the rugby game. He sees everything that's happening and is impressed, so he decides to join Frank's team. After that, Frank's team starts defeating Chink's team. The match becomes more intense and both sides begin physically attacking each other. Eventually, security steps in and the match is called off. The head mechanic then says to Frank, you can come to the garage starting tomorrow. You'll work with me. The next day, when Frank arrives at the garage, the head mechanic gives him a full tour. There he shows Frank a Mustang car and says, this used to be my favorite car, but the engine is completely wrecked now. It can be fixed. Frank replies, I'd like to give it a shot. The head mechanic says, if you can fix this engine, I'll give you whatever you ask for. Frank begins working on the car engine. He reads books and manuals, and since he's already highly skilled in this kind of work, he dedicates himself day and night to restoring the car. Eventually, he gets the engine running again, paints the car, and brings it back to life. It looks brand new. Vianon also sits with Frank in the car. He says, I don't know how to drive. Frank teaches him. Vianon asks, will I ever get to drive this car again? Frank simply replies, no. After that, Vianon takes the car out to the yard and starts driving it around. The noise and excitement in the yard attract the attention of the warden, who arrives at the scene. Frank is still there. The warden knows that Vianon is responsible for the incident, but instead of punishing him, he tells him to step aside because he really wants to get back at Frank. Then he hands a baseball bat to Chink and tells him to destroy the car. Right in front of Frank's eyes, Chink smashes the car. Frank is devastated. He had worked so hard for so many days to bring the car back to life, and now his dream was being shattered in front of him. As punishment, Frank is thrown into solitary confinement, a pitch-black cell. They shine bright lights into the cell several times a day and force him to look into the camera and say his name. Frank has no choice but to comply. He stays in solitary for several days, and it begins to affect his mind. One day, when he's asked to say his name, he says the wrong one. The guards rush in and beat him brutally. The prison captain shows up and stops them. He knows that Frank is being treated unfairly. He orders Frank to be removed from solitary. Frank's girlfriend had sent him many letters, but they had been withheld from him until now. The captain finally gives them to him. Frank reads the letters and feels genuinely happy. Now that he's free from solitary, he goes to the garage to meet his friends. Vianon apologizes to him and says, I was the one who deserved the punishment. Frank replies, it doesn't matter to me anymore. I've been in this prison for 40 days, and I've only got 20 more to go. I'm just waiting for that day. The next day, while Frank is eating, Chink walks over and takes his food tray without saying a word. Frank doesn't react. A few moments later, Frank's friends come over and share their food with him. When the warden finds out that Frank didn't fight back against Chink, he gets furious. He calls Chink and tells him that he needs to do something that'll increase Frank's sentence. So Chink teams up with his gang and calls Frank and Viano to the gym. There, a fight breaks out between Chink's gang and Frank's crew, and in the chaos, Viano ends up getting killed. When Frank hears what happened, he's filled with rage. He knows it's all his fault. Warden wanted him to fight Chink, and now Viano is dead because of it. Furious, Frank goes out looking for Chink and his gang. A brutal fight breaks out between them. But just as Frank is about to finish Chink off, he sees the warden watching from a distance, and in that moment, he realizes this is all part of the warden's plan. The warden wants Frank to kill Chink, so his sentence will be extended, and he can keep Frank in prison for life. Frank stops himself and decides to spare Chink's life. But as he turns away, one of Chink's gang members attacks him from behind, injuring him badly. Frank is rushed to the medical room. There, his girlfriend comes to visit. She's only given 30 minutes. When they see each other, they're overwhelmed with emotion. They deeply love each other. But just 5 minutes into the visit, guards come and escort her out. That night, when Frank is in his cell, another inmate comes in. He says, "I'm getting released tomorrow, and once I'm out, I'm going straight to your girlfriend. No one's going to stop me now." He even shows Frank a photo of her. Frank is shattered. He begs the guard to let him make a phone call, but the guard refuses. Soon after, Dallas comes to see Frank. Frank tells him, "I need to get out of here." Dallas tries to reason with him. "You've only got a few days left on your sentence. Don't do this." But Frank says, if I don't escape, he's going to kill her. Together, they start planning their escape. First, they knock out the guard on duty. Then they climb the wall and make it over to the other side. At one point, they reach a turn. Frank says, "We need to go right," but Dallas stops him. "No, we go left. I know the way out. You have to trust me." Frank trusts Dallas and follows him to the left. As they move forward, they suddenly find the warden standing there with a large group of guards. Frank is immediately captured. He realizes that his friend Dallas has betrayed him. Frank asks, "Why did you do this?" Dallas explains, "If not today, then tomorrow you would be released from this prison. But I was given a life sentence. The warden promised me that if I trapped you in his plan, he would give me a chance to escape from here, so I could be free forever." The warden, now successful in his plan, is very pleased. He tells Frank, "Last time you tried to escape, your sentence was increased by 5 years. This time, since you tried again, your sentence will be extended by 10 years. And in the next 10 years, I will ruin your life." At this, Dallas speaks up, "Let me go. I did what you asked." The warden replies, "No one escapes my prison." He signals his guards, who then brutally beat Dallas and throw him into the water. Before leaving, the warden orders the guards to severely beat Frank and lock him inside his cell. After saying this, he walks away. When the guards attack Frank, he fights back fiercely. One by one, he overpowers the guards and even throws one into the water. As Frank prepares to leave, Dallas suddenly appears and says, "Couldn't you understand my situation? Will you take me with you?" Frank, having forgiven Dallas, extends his hand. Just then, the guard who was thrown into the water grabs Frank's neck with a chain and starts choking him. Frank is close to losing his life when Dallas pulls out an electric wire and warns, "If you don't let go of Frank, I'll release this current into the water and you'll die too." Forced by the threat, the guard lets go of Frank. Dallas then throws the wire into the water, killing both himself and the guard. Frank escapes from the prison. Everyone is alerted and starts searching for him, but no one knows where he is. The warden is furious that Frank has slipped from his hands once again. He says, "I want Frank alive." Suddenly, Frank appears from behind and stabs the warden with a knife. He says, "What did you think? That I would just run away and spend my whole life running from the police? I couldn't do that." Frank drags the warden to the execution room and sits him in the electric chair. Prisoners who have been sentenced to death are also present. All the security guards, along with the captain, arrive. Frank ties his hand to the electric switch with tape. A gun is pointed at him. Frank warns, "If you shoot me, this switch will be turned on and the warden will be killed too." The captain says, "No one will shoot." He then tells the warden, "You need to confess all your crimes, everything you've done to me." The warden admits everything in front of the captain, explaining how he had trapped Frank to increase his sentence and prevent him from escaping. After the confession, Frank pulls the switch down. The warden screams, but nothing happens because Frank had removed the fuse earlier. Frank says, "I never wanted to kill you. I only wanted your truth to come out in front of everyone." The captain orders that Frank be arrested, along with the warden, since the warden broke every law for his personal revenge. A week later, Frank is released from prison for good because it's proven that everything that happened was part of the warden's conspiracy. The warden is fired from his job and is still facing legal charges. With this, the film ends. We hope you enjoyed this story.